Hola clase, en este video vamos a hablar del verbo gustar y verbos similares. So as you may recall, gustar we typically think of as meaning to like, but literally it means to be pleasing to. And it's better to think of it as to be pleasing to, as you will see in just a few moments. Now, this PowerPoint, I'm going to reveal quite a few things because I just don't really care for the way it's set up and how it reveals things. So let's talk about this. So here we have our Spanish and here we have our English. And the setup in English is a little different than Spanish. So let's take a look at our English side first, okay? So in English, we have a subject, which is here, and we have our verb here, and then we have our, in this case, direct object. So if I wanted to say, I like this suit, right? In Spanish, we would say, me gusta este traje, right? If I wanted to say, we like these rings, then in Spanish, we would say, nos gustan estos anillos. You liked those boots. It would be, te gustaron esas botas, right? So this is the way we typically say it in English because that's just, how we talk. We don't really use that to be pleasing to. But saying that really helps you remember what your subject is and in Spanish and what's controlling the verb. So as you know, whatever your subject is here controls your verb, right? The same thing happens in Spanish, except for this is not your subject, okay? The thing that you like happens to be the subject. So if you'll remember, we had the I like this suit, me gusta ese traje, right? Este traje is controlling gusta, right? And remember with gustar, we are only really using two forms of the verb. We use gusta and gustan in the present tense, gustó and gustaron in the preterite. So those are the usted, el, ella form and the ustedes, ellos, ellas form. Okay, so you may have noticed and you may remember that we will use the usted, el, ella form with a singular noun, right? And we use the ustedes, ellos, ellas form with plural nouns. We will also use this form with lists of nouns. So if I said, if I had este traje y ese vestido together, then, and I wanted to say that I like this suit and this dress, or that dress, then I would use gustan, okay? So these are controlling your verbs, and literally what we're saying, if I say me gusta este traje, I'm literally saying that this suit is pleasing to me. Nos gustan estos anillos, right? Even though you might think of them as being, we like these rings, literally saying these rings are pleasing to us. And then te gustaron esas botas, those boots are pleasing to you. So just translating it as to be pleasing to just really helps you focus on the idea that this is your subject and it controls the verb, so that you're not trying to match the verb up with this and coming up with the wrong conjugations. Okay? Muy bien. So let's talk about using verbs, other verbs like activities with gustar. Okay? If we want to talk about things people like to do, activities people like to do using verbs, then we're going to use one of our forms of the indirect object pronoun. And remember, we're not going to use os because that's kind of like vosotros, right? This is only going to be used in Spain. You use gusta, or if we were doing the preterite, you would use gustó, right? O with your accent mark. And then you're going to add the unconjugated verb, the infinitive. So, me gusta tocar la guitarra. I like to play the guitar, or literally, the guitar, or playing the guitar is pleasing to me. Okay, So what happens if you want to talk about liking more than one activity, more than one thing? Well, you're still going to use your correct indirect object pronoun. Guess what? The verb doesn't change. It is still gusta or gusto. It's going to be the usted, el, ella form of the verb. And then you're going to include all of your infinitives. So all of those verbs, but you're going to leave them unconjugated. Do not conjugate these verbs because gusta or gusto is it's already been conjugated. So here, me gusta estudiar la economía y escribir la tarea. So we might translate this as, I like to study economy and write homework. Or literally, writing homework and studying economy is pleasing to me. Okay, so remember this differs a little bit from our nouns. So if we had a list of nouns, we would use the ustedes, ellos, ellas form of the verb. So we would use gustan or gustaron. But in the case of verbs, they don't really have gender or number or anything. They're just verbs. They are always, no matter how many you have, if you have one or you have 1,000, we're always going to use the usted, ella form of that verb. So gusta or gusto if we're dealing with a preterite. Okay, so let's look at some verbs that work like gustar, that are backwards verbs. So keep that in mind. Remember, you're going to have your indirect object pronoun. You're going to conjugate these verbs, and your subject is going to be at the end. So encantar is really what we use to talk about things that we love that are objects. Okay, so when we say in English, a lot of times we'll say, oh, well, I love pizza, or I love, this particular author, or I like this type of movies. That's really what we're going to use is encantar. Okay, so it's to really like, to be extremely pleasing. Okay, fascinar, of course, to be fascinating, looks very similar to that. Interesar, to be interesting. Parecer, to seem. Quedar, to be left or to remain. So let's look at some examples of these. Les encanta comer fuera. Okay, and we would translate this as they love to eat out. Okay, but again, if you want to think of it backwards, in a backwards way, because this is your subject, eating out is extremely pleasing to them. Okay, it's backwards. Nos fascina la cocina francesa. Okay, French cuisine fascinates us. Okay, if you want to say that you like or dislike a person, then you want to use caerse bien. Okay, caer bien. So me cae bien Anita, or nos cae mal su novio. Okay. And this just means that you get along with a person, that you like a person or dislike a person. It does not have any implications that you like them in a romantic sense. Okay. But using the verb gustar to talk about them will typically imply something a little more romantic. Okay. Now remember, these verbs are used exclusively with indirect object pronouns. And so sometimes there may be some clarification needed. So here is that clarification. Also, here you have that explanation we talked about before, where instead of saying a él, we might say a Juan or a Marta, or even over here, we might use names instead of saying a ellos. However, if you do use names instead here, you need to put an a in front of every single name. And remember, these are the mandatory ones. This is the optional stuff. Okay? So you can't say a ellos gusta trabajar, right? You have to say les gusta trabajar. If you want to add the a ellos for clarification or for emphasis, then that's fine, but you have to have your les. So let's practice a little bit. So the top's gotten cut off a little bit, so I will ask you the questions. So my question is, ¿a las amigas les gusta comer postre? Les gusta comer postre. What do you think based on this photo? ¿Les gusta comer postre? Sí, les gusta comer postre, right? Les gusta comer postre, right? So here's our verb. Remember, we're saying that eating cake is pleasing to them. It's pleasing to most people though, right? Okay, so, ¿a ustedes les parece interesante el español? ¿A ustedes les parece interesante el español? So we have our verb parecer, right? Les parece interesante. Does it seem interesting? Right? And our subject was el español. So what do you think? Sí, nos parece interesante. Right? You may think no. Sorry, there goes Coco. I'm going to pause it for a moment. Okay, I'm back. Hopefully she's not going to bark anymore. Okay, so, ¿qué les encanta hacer los amigos? ¿Qué les encanta hacer a los amigos? So we've got our verb encantar. So what do they love to do is probably what we would say in English. Les encanta esquiar, right? So remember, we've got esquiar as a verb. So we've used encanta, the usted, el, ella form. Okay, ¿cuánto dinero me queda? ¿Cuánto dinero me queda? How much money do I have left? I'm not sure that there's any indicator here, but just focus on what our verb would be. ¿Cuánto dinero me queda? Okay, so here we go. Si pago $45 por un collar con un billete de 50, right? So if I pay $45 for a necklace with a $50 bill. So, ¿cuánto dinero me queda? Te quedan $5. Te quedan $5. Right? So you have $5 left. $5 remains. Okay, so clase, that is it for gustar y verbos similares. If you have any questions, please let me know. Send me an email and I'll be happy to answer those. Hasta luego, clase.